Hello. Good afternoon. Hello and welcome to the debut of our new program here at Unity Christ Church, Talks on Truth. We're coming to you today from the church, and Reverend Sallie Fox is the current Unity minister here at Unity Christ Church in St. Louis, Missouri. And in fact, she's going to be our first guest. I am Mary Biggs. I will be your hostess for these programs. And we welcome Reverend Sallie to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being willing to be our first guest. This is something new we're doing here at Unity Christ Church, and we're kind of excited because we're going to get to know the Reverend Sallie and other interesting Unity students along the path. So welcome, and thank you for being with us.
It's my honor to be the first interviewee, and I'm excited about this program as well.
Okay, great. Well, I would like to have our viewers find out a little bit of background information on you. If you could share some of your early history, maybe where you were raised and where you studied and what you studied and how you came to be Sallie Fox.
That would take quite a while, but actually I was raised right here in St. Louis and very close to where the church is right now in University City. And I studied language from a very young age. I was very good at language and very interested. So I studied French and then decided to major in Germanic studies through Washington University. And then found myself living in Florida for quite some time, for 20 years, where I pursued graduate studies, became an English teacher, and then...
In what particular city in Florida were you an English teacher?
Well, I was in Miami, and then I was in Gainesville when I was working on doctoral studies in linguistics, and then I wound up in Tampa at the University of South Florida. So linguistics is really my first love in language. And gosh.
Were you a university professor at one time?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, at the University of South Florida.
And that was in Gainesville?
That was, no, that wasn't in Gainesville, that was in Tampa.
Oh, okay. Well, you didn't answer one question, which is the famous St. Louis question. Which high school did you go to?
Well, I went to two of them. I went to University City High just for my sophomore year. And then we didn't start until 10th grade.
Oh, okay.
And then I went out to Parkway West.
Okay.
And finished there, graduated early, and then started some college.
You started at WashU here then, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I was also at Fontan for a while, and actually studied speech pathology. But then I realized that the most exciting part of the speech pathology for me was studying phonetics. So I knew that I had a love of language, and I drifted back towards language.
So during that entire time, did you get married? Did you have any children? Did you
No,
pursue?
I was pretty independent, and I traveled a lot. I lived in Europe as part of my bachelor studies in
a year or
Germanic studies.
Or?
Yes, I lived in Tübingen.
Tell us a little bit more about that experience.
Tübingen, which is outside of Stuttgart, and it's the University of Tübingen, and I lived there for a year.
And so you speak German?
I do.
Ah.
And then I moved to Miami, where I started learning Spanish because everyone there speaks Spanish.
That's right.
And did some traveling. I had friends in Mexico and in Chile. And then I went up to Gainesville, where I started studying Spanish as part of my doctoral program in Spanish linguistics. And then I wound up going to Spain for a year and working in a little town called San Lorenzo de Escorial, which is outside of Madrid.
And you worked and lived there a whole year?
I did.
And as a teacher?
I was a teacher and a coordinator of an exchange program.
So while you were in Europe in both of those instances, did you do a lot of traveling in the European
Like, you know, I didn't.
Continent?
Actually, I had done most of my traveling before that. I was so busy working and training teachers that I really didn't get to travel very much that year at all. But I fell in love with the area.
You had spent time in Germany, you spent time in Spain. Where else in Europe did you spend time in? Did you not go to Ireland at one point? I thought you said no. Okay.
No, I went to Edinburgh, Scotland.
Okay.
I've traveled in England, and I've traveled all over Germany and in Austria, France, Switzerland. I was in Denmark. I was in Holland. Where else? Italy.
Mhm.
Spent some time in Italy.
Okay, so then you are in Tampa, and
For
you were
9 years in Tampa.
teaching, and it seems like that's where you kind of found out about Unity. Am I wrong, or did you?
Yeah, that's correct. At first, I found Course in Miracles, and I love to tell this little story because I was in a Course in Miracles group that met on a Wednesday evening.
Can I ask you?
Yes.
You were born and raised Jewish, is that correct?
Oh, yes,
We
yes.
forgot that. Okay.
Yes, yes.
So, were you a formal Jewish Orthodox regular attendee at temple, or how did you fit, in your Jewish faith? In other words, were you a practicing?
I was raised Reform, which is towards the liberal side of Judaism. And yes, I've practiced for quite a while and still do.
And
didn't quite as much in Florida because I wasn't with my family at that time, so I was quite busy studying.
What led you into the Course of Miracles? Was it a study group somewhere in the Jewish area, or was
No,
it?
it was just someone who mentioned Course in Miracles and seeing life differently. I was kind of searching for more meaning. And I had wandered a little bit away from Judaism only because at the time that I grew up, there was so much emphasis on politics and not as much on spirituality. And there was no study at the time of the Kabbalah or any of the mystical teachings. And so I found myself looking for something a little deeper and didn't realize how much there was still to Judaism that I was unaware of. So I was just open to other paths of spirituality, and then Course in Miracles opened up.
Yeah, and how long? I've never done the course, so I don't really know, but how long did you do it, and are you still doing it? How does it work?
Well, course is a lifelong course, and I guess I started studying the course about 1992, and really haven't gone to a course group for about 10 years, maybe. I've just been too busy with Unity and as a minister.
For our viewers, some of them may know about A Course in Miracles, but I, for example, don't. Could you kind of describe how it works, and do you go every week, or is there a book, or?
Yes, there are books. There's probably one over here somewhere in our library. But there are several books. There's the text, there's the teacher's manual, and then there's the lessons, and now they all come together.
And you would meet weekly then?
Course groups meet at a different frequency. Most do meet once a week. The group I was in St. Petersburg, Florida, and we met once a week. This was the second group. The first group I was in met at Tampa Unity, which is actually how I found Unity.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And because I was having, at the end of that class one evening, and I said, isn't it a shame that there's not a way that people can come together more often to share these ideas and have more of a sense of community? And someone in the group said, well, you're here. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, you're at Tampa Unity. I said, what's Unity? And the rest is history.
Can you recall what year that was?
That was in 93, I believe.
Okay.
And that's when I started, I said, well, I better check out this Unity. Since I'm already here, I was in a different group.
Yeah.
So I went the next week.
So fast forwarding, we'll go right back, but fast forwarding a little over 20 years, you have been a Unity minister for what, 10, 13 years?
14 years.
14 years, okay.
14 years. 2002 I was ordained.
So, within 10 years of finding Unity, you head off to Unity Ministerial School, pretty pretty much.
Yes, I applied to the school in 1999, and I was accepted and started in 2000.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so now, as a uni minister, what would you say your most important contribution has been so far in Unity? Because you were at this church now, and you had a previous church, and before I know you did pastoral care and prayer chaplain. So if you want to share a little bit about all of those experiences, and there may not just be one most important contribution, but what would you feel has been the most important contribution from your point of view in all of your Unity ministries?
I would have to say, Mary, that the most important contribution for me is just having the privilege of touching people's lives in such an intimate way in terms of healing, helping them to see a clear path within themselves for healing, and being able to share the unity ideas and the truth principles that help people get to that point. That really makes it all worthwhile.
Would you, just for our viewers, share those 5 main principles of unity so that they may know?
Yes, of course. Well, they're all really very related, although they seem to be presented separately. But first principle is that there's only one presence and one power, one God. So the whole idea of oneness, of unity, and that all of life and all of power and knowledge comes from that one source. And through this first principle, everything else kind of trickles down, and this is the principle that really identifies unity from all other paths. Because when you believe there's only one, then there's no room for any other entity that can come up against the power of the allness of God. And that principle comes back to us all the time, and many of our other truths come back to the sense that there's only one. The second principle flows from that in the sense that, well, if God is the one presence, then who are we? And so the second principle answers that question. We are emanations, we are expressions, we are the continuation and the co-creation of that oneness of God, just kind of trickling out to the universe. And so we have all of the attributes because we're created in the image of the divine. So this, of course, also distinguishes us from a lot of other paths because we believe we were created in original virtue. And
not original
sin,
That's
because
right.
we're created in the image and likeness of our Creator. And so this really does help us to see that we are worthy of the abundance of the kingdom. We're worthy of knowledge, of beauty, of love, of peace. And that we are, in fact, connected at all times to our Creator. And we are co-creating with that Creator continually.
Even when we don't know it.
And usually we don't know it. The third principle answers the question, well, what do we do? What is our purpose? And so we've got this Creator, the allness of God, and we've got us in relation to God, and then we've got how we manifest in the world, and that is through the law of mind action, or the law of attraction, sometimes it's called, law of circulation, cause and effect. There are many ways of looking at it, and these laws are prevalent in all of New Thought, so in the paths of religious science and divine science, to some degree Christian science as well, that we believe that our thoughts, and then as a result our feelings, our words,